now let's zoom out and look at the tournament, with the other extracurricular activities which happened during the tournament. And very coincidentally, so I was just looking up, controversies which happened during the 2026 World Cup. And there is a Wikipedia page. It's called List of 2026 FIFA World Cup Controversies. So there's literally a Wikipedia page which is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There are 14 subsections in this said Wikipedia page. So let's go through it line by line and let's see how it is. So the first and foremost one was, it's a little bit something before the tournament. It is about how the four seeds were, put in different parts of the draw. I want both your opinions, by the way. Do you guys like it? Because it did end up happening, with the top four seeds ending up in the semifinal. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Or, it's, evens for either of you.
Go ahead there, Sai.
Oh no, I need some time to think about this one. You can go ahead.
All right, I will go ahead. I absolutely hate seeding in tournaments, and I think it should be abolished and fired into the sun, right? Because the whole idea, I get the fact that people who watch football once every 4 years only want to see Messi against Ronaldo or Messi against Haaland. I don't really care about these people, right? I care about people like ourselves who watch the Indian Super League, who watch the Premier League, who watch the Champions League and the African Cup of Nations and all those things, right? I want to see outsiders have a chance, right? Have a realistic chance. Instead of this thing of, okay, we'll put France at the top of the group, and then with them we'll have Norway, and then we'll have two nations who have very little chance of getting out of their group whatsoever. Now, with a 48-team World Cup, very few teams went out to begin with because we still had 32 after the first round of group games were played. But I want to see all that done away with. Because the chances of any of these teams beating, apart from Cape Verde, who did so well, but still they didn't beat anybody really. They drew against Saudi Arabia. They drew all their games until the point where they went out in extra time against Argentina. And I think that to me is not football. Football to me is David against Goliath. I want to see those teams put their best up against these other big nations, And if that means then that Cape Verde have to play Congo and they have to play Tunisia and then Algeria and then they have to beat Sweden and then all of a sudden they're in the same, that's fine by me, because football is not about fixing it for the big guys to win. Football is exactly the opposite. Leo Messi is about 5 feet tall. He's tiny. And if he didn't have injections as a kid, he wouldn't have been grown to the size that he is today and the brilliant player that he is today, right? We need to level the playing field here. And so many teams disappointed. Germany have had every chance that they had. Sweden got a lifeline, finished bottom of their qualifying group and still got the Nations League lifeline. How much more are we going to do so that wealthy European viewers and wealthy South American TV companies can watch these guys? They don't deserve it. Nobody deserves it. You get to the dance, that's fine. But then you have to break out your best moves and you have to show me that you deserve to remain on the dance floor until the final.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you have against that impassioned thing, Sai?
Oh, I mean, I agree with him because I'm also not a fan of seeding in tournaments, especially like you said, when you qualify, that's it. That's where it's not a privilege. Obviously, you've qualified based on merit, but that's where it ends. Right? Once you enter the battleground, you're all equals. You have to play like equals. And honestly, once a tournament organizer starts to seed teams, it feels more like it doesn't feel like you're organizing a tournament. It feels like they're like trying to shape how the competition has to look towards the end, and it sort of takes away that like unpredictability and all of that. And obviously, merit to all the teams that actually cause a lot of upsets in this tournament. They did it despite whatever was thrown their way, especially in terms of seeding and being paired with the big hitters in their particular groups and in their respective parts in the knockout stages. But it like, just imagine a tournament without seeding, and where you can have an upset in the very first game of the say tournament, and you just don't know what to expect, right? And obviously they do this for TV and for the commercial aspect of things, but somewhere I feel like if you actually make it a David versus Goliath in almost every match, and with the level of the grit that these underdogs have coming into these tournaments, I feel like every single game has the potential to be unpredictable.
Yeah. So yeah, like my thoughts are broadly along the same lines. I think both of you have uh, uh, articulated it very eloquently, so to speak. Like I don't think I can add more to that. So we move on to ticket prices. So this is a big debate which was happening before the tournament, and I think Philip can give us a lot of context because you were on the ground. You know how these ticket prices were fluctuating. You had an idea of what it was, especially FIFA discovering dynamic pricing. And when FIFA discovers such a money making exercise like that, they're going to run away with it. So like I think this floor is all yours specifically in this case.
It was kind of sad to see, Ashish, because like in previous editions of the tournament or like the Euros and that kind of thing, and especially when it's held in North America, right? If you have a European fan who's traveling over, ideally they would like to see all of their team's games. You're going, it's an 8, 9 hour flight from where I am to, you might get to New York in 7 hours. It's 10 hours to the West Coast. So if you're going to travel halfway around the world, you'd like to be able to go and see, at least your team's 3 group games and maybe stay on. But the cost of the tickets was absolutely phenomenal. Now, this is the American market. And American fans did not object to this, and Canadian fans didn't object to this because, like, I'll give you a sporting parallel. In up to a couple of days ago, the Boston Red Sox baseball team, they were on a run of games,
The
undefeated games,
15,
and
15 games in a row, if I'm not wrong.
it ended up at 15 games. Yeah, but the 15th game they played in the afternoon because they couldn't play it the night before. They won the 15th game, and the prices for the 16th game, which they lost, were through the roof. Right, the cheapest ticket for Fenway Park that night earlier in the morning was like $221, right? I've been to Fenway Park and I paid 25, right? So it's 10 times that price. And yet American fans, they literally have websites set up for this. I don't think that FIFA should be setting this example for the world, right? Because I don't ultimately think that football is about money. I know FIFA use the World Cup to generate money, and in fact, it's actually technically their only source of income. We all know that's not true, but they make their money around the World Cup, and that's fine. But there has to be a limit. I don't think that you should squeeze every dollar out of it, and I also don't think that you should squeeze every dollar out of fans, right? Companies, go for your life, okay? Take whatever money from Coca-Cola and McDonald's and whoever your car sponsor was, all the Facebook, I don't care, right? Fans are often involved in the game, right? So you might have a season ticket for your local club. You have a TV subscription to watch whatever Premier League and Champions League you want to watch. We're already paying. And not only that, many of us are contributing our time as coaches, as players, as mentors, as club secretaries. We're doing all these things for free, right? And that is the basis. That is the grassroots of the game that makes the professional ranks work. And I think that ultimately, I would love to see a situation where the tickets were affordable to basically every working man and woman. I'm very lucky in that I live in one of the richest countries in the world, in Sweden, right? So I could afford a ticket if I had to buy one. We get in free as members of the media, which is even better, right? So if Sweden were to play there and I want to go, I can probably afford the tickets. But I am keenly aware that there are people in Africa and there are people in South America who don't make in a month what I might make in a week or a day, right? And it's just not fair to me. And again, FIFA should stand for fairness. It should stand for a football. If they keep telling me football is for everybody, but your pricing is telling me something completely different.
Yeah, like I think Sai, you have any thoughts on this? Do you have anything to say? I don't know.
No, nothing different. Obviously, I don't think anyone's ever going to have a contrasting opinion to this because if
Apart from Gianni.
it obviously, except for the people in FIFA, but if if you're pricing people out of what's supposed to be the biggest global festival that comes once every 4 years, I mean, what are you doing, man? Honestly, what are you doing?
Yeah, so then we move on to another cash grab by FIFA, which is the halftime show which happened during the final, which was like I remember reading about this, by the way. What FIFA did was literally against IFAB rules. Like you cannot have a halftime break, so to speak, more than 20 minutes, if I'm not wrong. Like 20 minutes is absolute maximum you can extend that halftime break because the players would cool down. There are a lot of scientific reasons behind it, and FIFA just literally overruled IFAB just to. And that halftime show, it was sponsored by Tops. They went for the whole thing, and I refuse. I mean, see, I understand it's being in the US and all that, but man, it is a colossal the way it was, and the irony was it rung through that entire ceremony, so to speak, that halftime show. It is whole. Football is a key source of peace, and without football, we cannot. This thing and like and I was half expecting Johnny Infantino coming onto the stage in between and saying that, look at us. We prevented this many wars during the duration of the World Cup, and I wouldn't have been surprised if he had come onto the stage, just like coming from the ground upwards, something like that.
I didn't watch a single second of it. As soon as the halftime whistle blew, I turned off the TV and I waited, and I came back in and I turned it on with the thing muted, and they were still singing and dancing or doing whatever they did. To this day, I don't know. I've heard names of people who sang and artists who were there, and I've seen the picture of Madonna and the two Ronnies, Ronaldo and Ronaldinho. I've seen still pictures of that. I haven't read anything about it. I've just completely avoided the whole thing because, again, it goes back. What is football and who is it for, right? And the fact that they were trying to tell the world that, oh, football's for everybody and we're great and peace and inclusion and everything else like that. The entire tournament has been the opposite of that. A Somali referee wasn't allowed into the country. Iran had to change their plans and base themselves in Mexico. Don't fucking try to ram this down my throat now during a half an hour when the whole world is watching, because people who don't watch football might buy it, but I'm not buying it. You're not buying it. Sai's not buying it. Anybody who knows anything about it, when they tried to put this ribbon or put the lipstick on the pig as they were doing at halftime there, just know. And again, it's probably we'll wait because I know there's more controversies to come, right? But this whole thing of FIFA trying to control this narrative and make it seem like they are the most inclusive organization in the world, you're not. And we need to talk about that because that's damaging. And the entirety was summed up in that halftime show.
Yeah, definitely. And I happened to watch the entire halftime show because I was watching it for more of a macabre, curiosity, because I wanted to see what it was about. What would
You
be
were
the
hate watching. That's what Sai was talking about. You were hate
Yeah, I
watching.
hate watching it. Yeah, and I
Uh-huh.
think Wayne Rooney summed it up very well in the BBC coverage. He said, "I felt it was a little bit crap. I mean, I like the artists, I like what they do individually, but he summed it up best. I felt it was a little bit crap." So I think that's the overarching theme of that particular
I don't often agree with
specific.
Wayne Rooney, but I'm 100% behind him there.
Yeah. So, okay, I think we move on to okay, so the climate aspect of the World Cup. Okay, now there is a little bit of a dual, duality over here, so to speak. There were the hydration breaks, which are there for the good of the players. The FIFA always thinking about the players, and then there was Mr. Gianni Infantino. Having the carbon footprint of your crisscrossing across the world literally in 1 year, and that's literally about. I'm being very facetious with my figures over there, but I remember seeing this graphic right after the final where they showed which all games he went to, and like literally that the places he went to, the matches he went to, the map was so dense that you couldn't see any of the terrain of the US or Canada or Mexico. It was that filled with his flight paths, and so to speak. So the duality of that. What do you guys think? So, Sahib, what is your thoughts on that?
Uh, I mean, hydration breaks are not supposed to last for more than a minute, right? Usually in uh, games, obviously we all know why a 3 minute hydration break was factored in. Obviously, we're all for players protecting players in this extreme heat and all of that stuff. But uh, when it throws off the momentum, when it almost like it Americanized the game in a way that it made it a game of quarters instead of halves almost. With you knew when the referee was going to blow his whistle for a game, so it was almost like watching what has 4 quarters, basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost
Basketball, American football, ice hockey has three
exactly.
periods. Baseball doesn't have its innings. So, but yeah, like basically Americanized it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very this thing, and I don't know. It obviously doesn't make any footballing sense. We all know it was a very commercially driven thing, but I think I've given my thoughts in one of the previous episodes as well. Just no.
Just no. That's a big thumbs down there from Ashish. I would have to agree. I don't refer to them as hydration breaks. I refer to them as TV timeouts because that's what they're referred to as in the NBA as well. And it's actually at the point where the TV companies, I think, can call the timeout once it gets past a certain stage. They can go, okay, at this break in play, we want a timeout. And like I say, it ruined the rhythm of the game for me. It made it something completely different. I think the level of coaching that was allowed. I spoke to Graham Potter, the Sweden manager, a few weeks before he went to the World Cup, and that was one of the things that he and his guys were talking about. It's like, okay, great, we have this extra opportunity. So if something isn't working out in the game, we can bring the guys in, and while they're having a drink, 3 minutes is enough. You can change loads of things in 3 minutes and communicate loads of that. And that to me changes the character of the game, because I've spoken before about how football is essentially a problem of time and space that has to be solved by 11 individuals at the same time, right? That's what we saw in the final. Now, if you allow outside factors, coaches to come in there, if you're standing on the sideline giving some instructions, that kind of thing, that's one thing. But bringing guys in again, your little iPad, your magnets and that kind of thing,
The tactics.
it's a completely different sport. And that to me, and I guarantee you guys, we will see this in the Champions League, and then we will see it in the Premier League, because if you didn't do this in Qatar, where it was like 35, 40 degrees when I got there a few years ago, you had a 1 minute hydration break. That was absolutely fine, right? Somebody gets injured, the referee goes, okay, bring the water bottles on. We'll take 30 seconds here. Everybody get a drink. Fine, let's go. Okay. There's no need for that 3 minutes. That's why it was like the TV timeout, as I called it. And the other thing is that Infantino, we're going to get this thing. We had it to do with Qatar as well, and how it was the greenest World Cup ever, and all sustainability. And we built all these places, and they're going to be used by local communities. And we're going to house homeless puppies in them, and this kind of bullshit. And then he goes and he does what he does, right? There was absolutely no need for him to do that kind of traveling, right? As far as I know, most of the media organizations who were conscious of cost, because the cost of covering the World Cup were sky high, everybody had hubs. And this is what happens at the Olympics as well. So you have hubs because things are spread out maybe over 100 kilometers. Here we were spread out over 3 countries. So you have Mexico. I was in Vancouver. There was people in Los Angeles. But when I was in Vancouver, the photographers I worked with, they would go down to Seattle and they would photograph the games down there. And those games were always the day before our games in Vancouver. And then the same thing would happen over on the East Coast. I'm not as familiar, but it's only, a couple of hours on a train from Boston to New York. And there's no excuse for Gianni Infantino. He could have gone to New York. He could have gone from there to Philadelphia if they had games there, and from there to Boston. And then you can get down to Miami reasonably easy. And then after a week of doing that, then you move to the West Coast. And you go to Vancouver, you go to Seattle, and you go to Los Angeles then. And then you move back. There was absolutely no need for him to be getting on a private jet every day just to be booed in every single World Cup stadium. There's just no point to that. And to me, it's a kind of a flex, as you young kids say. It's like, oh, look at me. I'm sitting here with the president of this nation or the FA president of that nation. But the one thing that did delight me was that Gianni had to sit beside the Norwegian FA president, Lisa Klaveness, and she used the 90 minutes of whatever game she was sitting beside him to bend his ear about all of these controversies that we're talking about now.
Yeah, I think she's one of the key voices in Reboot FIFA, that movement which is coming,
Yep.
which is happening, right? Like I would love to speak to a person with that. I'm trying to get a person with regard to that, because I'm really intrigued by what they're trying to achieve with that particular movement. So it would be very
Well,
interesting to see how they
I'd
come.
certainly, yeah, I'd certainly connect you with them, Ashish, because they're people that I've had a lot of dealings with. And Lisa herself is very sort of, she's very diplomatic. She wouldn't say, oh, Infantino, it's time to go, or that kind of thing. But her advisor last night told me, and I wrote the story for Reuters today, we can drop a link maybe in the show notes, because they're considering a second ethics complaint. So a non-profit human rights organization called Fair Square has reported FIFA to its own ethics committee over the awarding of the Peace Prize. And the grounds for that ethics complaint are that FIFA shouldn't be as involved in politics. It has to be involved in politics in some way. We understand that. But it shouldn't be as involved in politics as Trump is with Infantino, and Infantino is with Trump, right? And the second part of that then now, so the Norwegian FA, they have a board meeting on the 6th of August, and they're considering a second complaint over the overturning of one of the things on your 14-point list here, the red card for Balogun. Okay. And when Trump called Infantino, and then all of a sudden it was overturned, the ban was suspended for 1 year. So the Norwegian FA is considering another ethics complaint based on that. And Lisa spoke, I think she spoke to the Times in London, and she spoke to somebody, she spoke to a little bit of Norwegian media about it. And then I was just talking to her advisor last night, and he was saying, yeah, we want them to admit that overturning that ban, even though the Americans lost against Belgium in the last 16, it was the wrong thing to do. It was morally not the right thing to do. And I think it's an interesting one because, Lisa herself is a lawyer and she has worked as a judge in a district court in Norway. And she's a very considered person. She doesn't just blurt things out. If I ask Lisa a question, she mightn't answer for 2 or 3 days on WhatsApp, and I appreciate that because you know that she's putting some time and some thought into whatever response you're going to get. So she's looking to do something constructive. She doesn't want to just shame Infantino and call him names, that kind of thing. She's giving him the opportunity to say, look, yeah, okay, we may have made a mistake here. And now that the World Cup is over, he could probably do that, So it is an interesting one. And hopefully I'll be able to connect you with somebody who can talk a little bit more about these things in the future.
Yeah. I'm there's a particular person who I wanted to speak to, is Musa Konga. Like he does do this cardio podcast as well, because I do find his whole life story also to be very important in terms of like how, like, where he is. So like I was actually looking to connect with him, but anyone else also would be really good. Like it would be a really good episode. Like speaking about the reboot FIFA movement, like to go into specifics rather than us knowing it from the outside looking in. So that is one thing.
We will manifest that into existence.
Definitely. So yeah, like I mean, as we speak, okay, so I did see I'm recovering a little bit from LeBron playing in Philly. Like I mean, I was hoping he would play for the Nuggets, but yeah, there's that as well. So
I had to turn off WhatsApp because I'm getting so many messages about him signing for the Philadelphia 76ers.
yeah, he chose the wrong particular team, but okay, I digress. So okay, let's move on to this. Okay, so uh, this is something which I also, it's not like a controversy, but it's more something which I observed throughout the tournament. How, even though this was hosted by three countries, like progressively, like once the last stage started, it became an American World Cup. Okay, forget that. Okay, we lost the likes of Mexico or the Azteca in particular, not having to host either a quarterfinal or even a semifinal for that matter. Like a stadium with such storied history, which has hosted two prior World Cup finals before, and to not be in consideration for even a quarterfinal was very bizarre. Like I understand why Canada may not have been in the running, a little bit younger in terms of footballing pedigree, understandable. And it also culminated in how the events in the final took place, right? In the full prize distribution which happened after that. We did see Trump, we did see Scheinbaum, and I forgot, I may have pronounced her name wrong, and we did see Kanye over there. And Kanye and Scheinbaum were just standing there, very polite, not being overly involved. They were like, glad handing the right people. And then we see Trump, just inserting himself into the entire thing. And then we just have, Infantino, who's like this caretaker for him, just, ambling along with him and doing all that. And I just found it stark, this is a co-hosted World Cup, and at least you can allow them, like, if not for the, winners' medals, maybe allow them to, put the medals on the, the Argentinian team and all that. I found it to be so bizarre. Like how they got progressively sidelined as the tournament got, continued.
I think one of the things that they could have done there, Ashish, was that, and it became that sort of funnel thing. It's like, okay, Mexico and Canada, you're there, and then all of a sudden you disappear. I wouldn't have had the semi-finals in America. I would have had one in Vancouver just to suit myself. I would have got to stay there longer, and the other one I would have had in the Azteca. Or you could have done the two semi-finals in Canada, one in Vancouver, one in Toronto, and do the third and fourth place playoff in Mexico City. Because, like you say, the Azteca is an absolutely iconic World Cup venue. And to throw away the history of the game like this, and maybe I'm just a cranky old man at this stage, right? But I'm much in awe as I love the memes and I love the online culture and I love Ronaldo and Messi and Mbappe and all these people who come out, Lamine Yamal, all of these people, right? That's great. But the game existed before me and it existed before them, and it will continue to exist after. And this is the perfect World Cup to illustrate that. Mexico has the history, having held it twice, two finals at the Azteca. The USA has held it once. Canada is the future because they're trying to build a soccer culture there. And they've done very well on the women's side. And they've had a World Cup there in 2015 for the women that was very successful. But it was a perfect opportunity to sort of, to show all sides of the game, to show that historic aspect of it, and to also show what we're building for the future. But again, it became that political football. And I do think this will probably come out now in the various ethics complaints that, Trump wanted it. And of course, he came out and said afterwards, oh, we should have the World Cup again very soon in North America. But now Canada and Mexico shouldn't be involved. And to be honest, I'm kind of done. Like, and I've said this in public before, and sometimes I get criticism for it, right? I don't need North America to like football, right? In fact, I can do without them. Because every time they insert themselves into this, they manage to screw something up with TV timeouts, with Donald Trump standing there like a spare, I don't know, when the trophy is being presented and that kind of thing. Like all of these things, it's sullied. It doesn't feel that sort of purity that we once felt, with the Brazil team of 1982 that didn't even win the tournament, or indeed the team that won in 1970 that were brilliant, England in 1966, the great Argentinian teams of the past as well. We lose something every time we give something away to politics and to political figures. I think we need to bring it back in and center that whole idea of the game and the people who make the game possible, which is all of us, and take it away from the idea of the politicians and the money, because those things, again, I've always said the politicians aren't there, they're there to serve us and not the other way around. Trump should have been the most humble man in the world, as the Mexican president was, and as the Carney was for Canada, and that's why I just find it very distasteful, the whole thing.
Yeah, like it was like more like, it felt sad once, the England Mexico game ended, at least for me personally. Like it was like that entire tournament, the Azteca was just like, it was literally shaking. Like it was literally shaking. You could hear, like I could feel the shaking of that stadium from, like thousands of miles away. And it was sad to not even see it in a quarterfinal, not even, like a brilliant stadium in Guadalajara not getting the chance to host a quarterfinal. Azteca not even, it is like it's like, and I think you mentioned North America. I think we have to be very specific here. It's the United States of America rather than North America in general. I think that the generalization we have to give, because I think Mexico are one of the OG football loving nations. I don't think
Oh yeah.
they will, I don't think there's any doubt that they will not get football. And I think Canada is slowly reaching there, at least from what you told us throughout the tournament as well. They've been learning to love it. They're not like making comparisons as well. It's just one particular country which happens to be sandwiched between both these countries, which happens to do these, shenanigans, so to speak. So there's that. So
But,
like
but, the,
I
but the
think,
point is that she's sorry
yeah,
to interrupt you, right? But the thing is that when I say that about North America, right, I mean the fact that they're asking us to change our game to suit them. Canada has never done that.
yeah,
Canada has always wanted to be part of the world football community, but just kind of wasn't good enough and couldn't generate the interest among those people who were there. Mexico has always done its own thing, and I've always seen Mexico almost more as part of South America and that footballing culture
Latin
than
America
exactly
downwards.
Latin American footballing culture. The same goes for Costa Rica and places like that. So you are correct, though. It's the United States that I could probably do without the most.
Yeah, definitely. So I think let's end with two particular, topics. Well, like one was a very, I think one of the most brazen ways in which one country or one team was, disadvantaged compared to the other 47 nations. It is the plight. I think we mentioned it throughout the tournament. Like, I mean, even in our episodes as well, between me and Sai, we have mentioned what they've gone through. And I think you also mentioned it in passing, even up until like 2, 3 minutes back as well, about the plight of the Iranian team. And it's, I'm not going to say that, what the regime in Iran is to be supported, but I'm not going as far as to say that, because they do have their fair share of, skeletons in the closet, so to speak, and they have done certain reprehensible stuff. But to see the contrast, that how one country, like, and the fact that, how the country, it could, a very simple solution was there. They could have just played that games in Mexico or even Canada for that matter, and this would have solved a lot of issues. This was deliberately done to ensure that they were ostracized and not allowed to compete at peak level. And it is there for everyone to see. Like I don't think anyone can dispute that fact. So I think that is the second last penultimate topic for us to cover.
Sorry, do you want to come in there?
Uh, I mean, obviously, if we start with the whole politics side of it, I think we can create not just one, but like a whole podcast series on just the politics between the US and Iran. But keeping that aside, the players, the fans, and the general footballing population of Iran shouldn't be the ones that pay the price ultimately. And it was so blatant, the unfairness and the way that they were treated. It genuinely boils your blood to see that, to see it just being allowed that way, right? And something that no other team had to deal with, at least to this level. There were obviously fans from other countries that were left behind, officials, etc. But to see the premier institution allowing it to happen, when in the past there have been cases of, uh, I think I think I think Indonesia was banned from hosting one of the youth tournaments because they refused to allow Israeli athletes, right? To go from that to, I don't know, just saying yes to whatever Donald Trump wants. It was obviously heartbreaking to see, and I think a lot of people wanted Iran to do really well, just despite whatever was thrown their way. But when it's so blatant and so in your face, and all you there's nothing anyone else can do except raise the issue. But how much can you raise? How much noise can you create when the person who ultimately has to hear is very happily turning a deaf ear to your complaints?
I think it's one of the things, and again, when I say that the game has been sullied by what's happened over the last few weeks, that is one of the things that stands out the most. It's, let's call it what it is. It was based in racism. It's based in Islamophobia. And again, if you go back to the World Cup 4 years ago in Qatar and say that the Israeli team had qualified for that, and imagine the Qatari authorities saying, "Okay, Israel, you can play. That's fine, but you have to fly in from Tel Aviv for each of your games, and then you have to leave. You don't get to stay in a hotel here, and then you have to come back again because that's what was done to Iran, was made to do that." But then on the wider subject, you had fans from Senegal who weren't allowed in, the super fan from the Democratic Republic of Congo who dressed up as Patrice Lumumba and would stand there like stock still for the whole game. Like he was banned. He couldn't get a visa to get back into America. The referee, whose name I've forgotten, who was from Somalia, couldn't get in there at all. Yeah, and like so this whole thing happened, and it happened in plain sight. And my big fear, guys, is that this is going to be forgotten because football always takes us on that journey. Now, this particular journey ended on a minor chord, so to speak, with that final between Spain and Argentina. But I think across the entire tournament, we had Holland, we had the Norwegian fans, we had the Mexicans, the Azteca, we had Canada almost breaking through, but not quite, winning games for the first time, Egypt, Mohamed Salah, Cape Verde. We had so many brilliant stories that we're going to forget Saman Ghoddos and Iran and how they were treated, how the referee was treated. And they are really the things that we should be taking from this tournament because the great basketball player called John Amici, he's a gay man who played in the NBA, and he now is a sort of a leadership consultant. And if you have a chance to follow him on social media, do. He's one of the smartest guys you'll come across. And one of the things that I always come back to that he says an awful lot is your culture is defined by the worst behavior that you're wished to tolerate. And if we're prepared to tolerate that in the World Cup and TV timeouts and the overturning of red cards and all these things, then that changes the game. That changes the fairness. And it was 47 teams were treated in one way and Iran were treated completely differently. And I don't think we can accept that because, for the health of the game and for the future of the game, because ultimately there's a load of people. You mentioned being like 12 years old watching the World Cup for the first time in 2010. And this is where
Actually,
people start.
2006 is when I first saw the World Cup. But yeah, like that 2010 World Cup was horrible, like horrific.
Yeah, but even in 2006, like those World Cups that you see as a child form you, right? The first
Yeah.
one that I remember, I vaguely remember 1974, but I definitely remember 1978 in the final between Argentina and Netherlands, and Mario Kempes and Daniel Passarella and all these Johnny Rep playing for the Netherlands, that kind of thing. And that was where my love of football started. But that my view of football and my view of life was sort of formed by that experience and the way football should be played and the way the game should be treated and what it means to people. And that's why I'm so passionate about the idea that, fairness has to apply to all. And when we allow money and politics to take over, that's when we lose the run of ourselves. And when we start trying to fix the outcome just for viewers, no. Every football game is not a work of art. Every football game is not, the third, fourth place playoff with 10 goals and amazing things happen and you can't look away from the screen, right? That's not what life is. And that's not what the game is. And we can't allow it to be sort of, funneled in there because then all of a sudden we're going to be playing, when I finish playing football at the lowest level and there's rolling substitutions and, you get tired and you go off and you go back on again. That's not the game. Let's leave the game as it is, because it's worked for so long now. There's no need to change it any further.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like the Frankenstein, ification of football, right? Like we're doing all these feats, and also like the introduction of VAR as well. I think like I'm one of the most strident, opposers for VAR, so to speak, especially with how it's been implemented, like from the very beginning up until like now as we speak. And it's when you introduce these, let's call them what they are, gimmicks. Like when you introduce these gimmicks to, gamify the game, to make the game more palatable and introduce it to bigger audiences, you lose sight of what the game is all about. And it's about, 22 players playing with one ball and trying to score one goal to win the game. They're trying their hardest to win the game by putting their bodies on the line, by in a very physical sport, one of the most physically demanding sports, and to play for 90 minutes is no small feat. Like, I mean, yeah, like you realize the level when you, like, even for me, when I play, I'm not the greatest footballer. I would say I'm like okay. But if I play against, say, a district level footballer, I do know my level, and that progressively increases more and more as we go up through the levels. And but you don't feel that in a game like football, and this just takes away from that. All these small, like, I mean, FIFA thinks they're doing it for the good of the game, but they're not. They're just interfering for no rhyme or reason, and that's
But
why
that's
I find, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a very good point. That's something we shouldn't forget, Ashish, because like an awful lot of the changes that are made here now, we talk about fairness, right? And VAR, okay, and automated offside and that kind of thing. That's all fine, right? Fairness. Look at Iran. Look what we just spoke about. And then tell me about VAR and how you're making the game more fair, right? Because I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing a team that's being excluded. I'm seeing a team that's being victimized and it's being bullied and being picked on, right? So don't come and talk to me about changing the game for fairness. And the other aspect of it, you make an extremely valid point there. Football's a complicated game. It's a difficult game. There's a reason guys get paid millions of pounds and euros and dollars a year to play this game. Is because if we could all do it, it wouldn't be that enjoyable, right? The greatest novel written in the English language was written by my fellow Irishman, James Joyce, Ulysses. You'll see the movie The Odyssey is out now. Joyce did that. And like it's a very, very difficult book to read, even for native English speakers like ourselves, educated people like ourselves, people who've read plenty of books, right? I don't want Ulysses dumbed down. I've still never finished reading that book. I'm 55 years old and I'm still reading it for the first time. And I go back and I start again and I find new things and that kind of. It's taking me forever because I don't have the intellect or the capacity to do it in one sitting. Right? I do not want the cliff notes. I do not want to put it into ChatGPT and say summarize it because I know already. Right? I want to read every single word of that book and I want to digest it in the same way that I want to see every pass, every reception, every goal, every cross, every tackle, every movement, every tactical shift in a game of football, because football is a complicated thing, right? It's not fair. The best team doesn't always win. Bad things happen and bad people get away with good things. And they win World Cups and Champions Leagues and they win medals and make money and that kind of thing, right? That's what life is about. That is what football is about. That is what art is about. That is what humanity is about. And if we're going to go in and tinker under the hood and say we're doing something like making the game fairer at the same time as we're absolutely not doing that, we're only fooling ourselves. Football is fine. Leave it well enough alone. And the people who enjoy it and who understand it, like ourselves, who become saved by the game and it's given us so much, we'll find our level in it. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, like, let's end on this point. The fact that, Mr. Gianni Infantino wants to expand the tournament further to a 64 nation tournament, and like, I mean, I have no words to say, and I'm going to illustrate it with this famous scene from The Gladiator. Like, this is what
The
I'm
thumbs
thinking.
down.
The thumbs
The
down.
thumbs
That's
down,
what I mean.
Ashish. Do you know what's going to happen, Ashish, right? I'm going to take it. You give me the thumbs down there, right? I'm going to get you my crystal ball here, right? So here's the crystal ball right in front of us here. Do you know what's going to happen? And maybe not in 4 years' time or in 8 years' time, but in 12 or 20 years' time, there's going to be a suggestion from FIFA. Mark my words. And it's going to be an invitational thing. And it's going to be 8 teams. And it's going to be straight knockout. Win or go home, right? And we're going to be back to where we started 100 odd years ago, right? That's where and we're going to have the best players from South America and the best players from Asia and Europe and North America, and billions of people are going to watch it. And in that way, we will rediscover the roots of football because we'll travel the world to end up back where we are to find ourselves in this game.
Oh my God, like, it's like, it's bizarre,
You know
when
what's going
you.
to happen. Tell me it's not going to happen, man,
Like,
because
I
I won't
mean,
believe you.
I won't be surprised. Let's put it that way. Like, I won't be surprised, because, especially with whoever cooks up all this, it need not be Infantino. Like, to be fair to him, it could be some of his, uh, advisors, so to speak, who could be saying, yeah, 64 team, let's make tons of money. Let's, roll in the money and burn cash as we do it, and burn fossil fuels and burn everything and burn human rights and burn basic dignity, human dignity, and bow down to every politician that there is. And and I think uh, Infantino is like the worst type of human being that there is, because he will bow down to, like, I'm very sorry to say, like, he will bow down to anything to get what is done, and I know I'm pretty sure he's gonna go on a full charm offensive for whoever, I mean, Mohammed bin Salman, when the World Cup goes to Saudi Arabia in 8 years' time, in 2034. I'm pretty sure he's going to do that. I mean, for the premiere for Morocco as well, the King of Morocco. So, like, it's gonna continue.
Yeah.
He's gonna do that. Like, there's going to be a. I did read recently. There's a big fight happening between Spain and Morocco over who's going to host the final, and I mean, I hope it's Morocco, because it will be a very different thing compared to what we've seen, because they are building a stadium and all that. But I mean, having a full World Cup final at the Bernabeu is also a very appealing prospect. But yeah, like, it is. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, if it happens, I'll be like, I will we will clip this out and we will put it out to the world, and in whatever social media there is out there, we will be like,
I'll tell you what, actually, by the time this happens, I could be long dead and gone, right? But remember, go back and Google up this clip for yourself, because I guarantee it's going to happen.
yeah, like, I think it's fair to say, like, I think we end here. Like, we end on a little bit of a. No, I mean, it's the World Cup is not just about what all the extracurricular stuff or the bad stuff which happens. It's also about the good stuff, which we've definitely talked about plenty in all our prior episodes as well. I just thought we should do a little bit more time and give a little more, rather than odd sound bites here and there. Focus on a little bit of these topics, which are, I mean, and I've not covered a lot of other stuff. There are plenty of other stuff which are there, like the local transit, the public transit not being the greatest in North America in general. There were a few labor strikes in the SoFi Stadium, and even in Mexico, if I'm not wrong, there was a strike over there. Then there is, I mean, I didn't think, I mean, it's not that they were not important. I felt like they were not as in the overall zeitgeist of the World Cup, they may get forgotten, and that's why I didn't mention them as much. But they are also equally as important as well in the overall perception of how we see this World Cup, and to see the fact that there is a Wikipedia page, like, controversies of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which is like super amazing, and yeah, like, it is what it is. But I just want to end this episode with this, like, I think, thank you, Philip, for bearing with me, like, listening to my dulcet tones, like, taking us through the thing. And we did have a special appearance in the end, in our the three-man weave became a three-man weave, like a three-person weave at the end, like, so to speak, like, truly. And it was a very great episode, like, a little long, but I feel like we'll probably release this in parts, divided into two parts. We'll think about it. We'll deliberate over that. But it has been a true pleasure. I mean, like, uh, doing this series with you. You've been really, really good with us, giving that insight, giving us your, it could be like you say, it could be like a very cranky take, but I love the passion with which you come with it, and you're very full-blooded with what you believe the football should be played, how football should be governed, and that's what it is. And you're connected, the right people, and I think that's what was like brilliant about the series, and it has been well received as well. And I wanted to thank you for that, Philip. And what has been your overall experience throughout this thing? You can be honest here. Like, you can say, "Oh, yeah, I mean,
No,
this guy, I had no choice but to take this
no,
up."
but it's
So
been
yeah,
absolutely brilliant, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to talk to Sai and to talk to your audience as well, because when you do the job that I do and you spend so much time writing about these things and talking to people and thinking about these things, and I always describe football, Ashish, as the most important of the least important things. Okay, football gives us so much. Okay, like if it wasn't for football, I wouldn't have a friend, I wouldn't have a job, I wouldn't have had all these experiences, all these stories, all this network, all these, like, getting to know people like you and that kind of thing. I wouldn't have anything without the game of football, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful to the game of football for what it's given me. And like, it's literally all I think about most of the time, right? And that is why I'm so passionate about doing things in the right way. Because the simple thing I want from football is that everybody around the world who likes the game will get even 1% of what I get out of it. But in order to do that, we have to see it in a certain way. We have to sacrifice for each other, because it's what the sport demands of us. but it's also what demands of us. None of us is an island. None of us can change these things overnight. We all need to work together to make the world a better place on and off the field. So it's been brilliant, the series that we've had here, and I'm looking forward to the next one, which we'll probably do again next summer.
Yeah, definitely. And like I would like to say, like, yeah, this is not, we are not going to, like, we'll definitely release a few more videos, not as much in terms of frequency. We'll probably be a little more, focused on particular niche topics. And yeah, like, I think in the near future, I would hope to, like, I would like to bring on a person from the Reboot FIFA initiative, like the whole movement. I would like to go on a deep dive on that. So, Philip, if you can help us out on that, I'll also try on my end. Definitely, I want to
Absolutely.
bring a person from that. But yeah, like guys, please like and subscribe, and yeah, we will see you in the near future. Hopefully, maybe in a couple of weeks' time, or it could be a month. But yeah, stay tuned. So please like and subscribe and drop a comment as well. Uh, Drop a nice comment. Don't be mean with your comments. But yeah, no one has dropped a mean comment, so to speak. So we've been lucky from that perspective.